everyone, this is Mindy Eggen and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to put together a spooky fun platform pop-up card. I will have all of the supplies that I'm using today linked down below in the video description and over on my blog. The first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to stamp out my images onto 80-pound white cardstock from Fawn. So right now I am just laying out all the images that I have picked out. I'm going to be using a lot of the images from the Halloween mice set. So once I have those laid out in my Misty tool, I'm going to stamp them using the Fawn Jet Black ink, which is safe to use with alcohol markers. To make sure I'm getting nice, clean, crisp images, I'm going to stamp them twice. So not only is the jet black ink good for using with alcohol markers, but it is also great to use with your ink blending. So I picked out a bunch of mini ink cubes. I'm going to go through those in just a moment. But first I'm going to take my cardstock and place it down onto a sticky mat. This mat is going to hold my cardstock in place, but also hold down my stencil. So I will be using the coloring stencils to color in my images today using a mini blending brush. But like I mentioned earlier, you could also use your alcohol markers to color in the images. Now, I did show a quick shot of all of the colors that I'm using today in the mini ink cubes. Those colors are manatee, river rock, peacock, mermaid, apricot, pumpkin spice, peachy keen, number 2 pencil, moonstone, grape jelly, jalapeno, fake tan, dough, and walnut. Now I know that sounded like a lot of different colors to use. Some of them I do use multiple colors on, like for instance this pumpkin, I use 2 different colors on to give it a little bit more shading. But when you're using mini ink cubes, it actually goes really quick and you don't even realize how many inks you brought out. Another great feature about using this sticky mat while doing my ink blending is that it is able to hold my mini ink cube. So I can just place that down on the sticky mat, take off the lid, and it's holding my ink cube down while I pick up that ink. Now with each of these stencils, I do just kind of shift it around to wherever it corresponds to the image. They are kind of outlined so you can line it up perfectly with the etchings that are on that coloring stencil. It makes coloring these in so super quick and easy. And also, because I am using a small detail blending brush like this, I don't need to worry about masking off any edges. I'm able to really control the amount of ink that I'm putting down and how much room it's taking up. So I'm not even going over the edge of the stencil. Now here I am just finishing off my spooky trees with a little bit of light gray and then adding a bit of dark gray to add that dimension. I can just peel up my cardstock when I'm done, and then I'm going to line up the coordinating dies for each of those, hold that down with a low tack tape, and run that through the die cut machine. Now the dies that I'm going to be using for my project is going to be the platform pop-up, and then I also have the full moon die. So I die cut everything out of white cardstock because I really want to be able to customize the colors that I'm using for each. Those T-square pieces I am going to leave white, but everything else I am going to add some color to. So I have 1 moon, 3 T-shaped pieces, 3 grass pieces, and then also 2 of the platform pop-up. So first I'm going to start with my moon. I started with Antique Linen Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to really go around the outer edge of it to add that color. And then I brought in another blending tool. This had a little bit of brown left over. I'm not even sure what color this is. It was just leftover ink on my sponge. So I added that to one side of the moon. For the grass pieces, I'm going to do these all the same way. I started with antique linen towards the bottom, kind of fading off towards the top. And then I'm going to bring in some peeled paint. And once in a while, I'll bring that blending brush back with the antique linen on it to just kind of help smooth out that transition. For the platform pop-up, I am ink blending on the area that has that open or that slit on there. I mask the other areas off so I don't get ink on there. And I'm just using peeled paint. Now, a lot of times I will mask off areas where I should have an adhesive on it because I do kind of find that adhesive doesn't want to stick to really wet areas or really inked up areas. Now, with the platform pop-up on both of these pieces, I'm just going through and folding along all of those scored lines on both pieces and then reinforcing those folds with my bone folder. Then on our 3 T-shaped pieces, they have a little score line down towards the bottom here. I'm trying to show you on camera. So what we'll do is we will fold along that score line of 2 of the T-shaped pieces. For the third one, we are just going to cut along that score line. Then on the platform pop-up pieces, there are a couple tabs, and I'm going to be adding some of the 1/4-inch double-sided tape to each of those tabs. So there's 2 on each box. Now we're going to take one of those and also one of our T-shaped pieces. We are going to slide it through the slit. This is going to be our grassy area where we build our scene. Then on that tab of the T-shaped piece, I'm adding the 1/4 inch double-sided tape. And since I had that out, I just went ahead and did it to the other piece as well. Now we're going to start the assembly of our first side of the platform pop-up. So I have this kind of folded down. I'm removing the backing of that double-sided tape on that T-shaped piece. I'm going to fold that over. Then I can kind of just push that up and we have our larger tab towards the top. I'm going to fold that, and once we kind of bend that back up or fold along our lines, it's going to form the 1/2 of our platform pop-up. So here I am just doing those same steps, removing the backing and folding over those tabs. Then to combine these two pieces, we are going to take that third T where we did not have that tab at the bottom, we cut it off, and I'm adding double-sided tape to one side of the T. I'm also going to add the double-sided tape to that strip of white that's going to be right in the center. So this is the part that is connecting our platform pop-up boxes. I went ahead, added that T-shaped piece right in the center, making sure that the T at the top is lined up flush with my score line. I went ahead and added or connected the two tabs together. So now we have one long strip. I'll remove the backing of the double-sided tape for the inside and then just fold this over, making sure that the bottoms are flush together and line up perfectly. And then I can just close up this last tab on the side. Now we have the main base piece for our platform pop-up and we can start decorating. So here I have my 3 grass pieces that I'm going to add to the top of those T-shaped pieces. I added the 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape and I'm going to go ahead and add that to the top of each of the T's. Now this is something that you can do before you actually put your platform pop-up together, but I tend to confuse myself on being the front or the back. Sometimes I've put my grass on just the wrong way or facing different directions. So I find this to be a little bit easier to do afterwards. I want my full moon to kind of go in the background behind my grass. So I just used a paper trimmer and trimmed off a little bit at the bottom of my moon. Then I'm adding that 1/4 inch double-sided tape to the front of the moon at the bottom there along that area that I trimmed off. And then I can add this behind the grass. And this looks really cool to build up your nighttime scene. Doesn't even have to be Halloween. Now I can start decorating my scene. So I am going to be using mainly tape runner for a lot of this. I added one of the spooky trees right in front of the moon so I could add adhesive to the entire back of the tree. The rest of the pieces, I'm going to be adding that tape runner just towards the bottom for the most part. My one mouse that I have that is a little witch flying on a broom, I added a thin strip of acetate to that, just using a tape runner. So that way it is able to be kind of up and in the air flying across the moon, but yet doesn't look attached to the grass. And even just using that mouse that's on that broomstick, I think is super cute. I wouldn't even have needed to add any more to the scene, but how can we resist these adorable mice all dressed up? So I'm just going to continue building up the scene. I added the ghost costume mouse, my princess, and then I have the one that's in a pumpkin and I tucked that over off on the right-hand side. Now, again, it's really cute as is, but I kind of wanted to add a spooky sky to the background. So I did die cut out of 80-pound white cardstock the platform pop-up add-on, and I started by ink blending with Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink, then coming in with Seedless Preserves. Again, I went back and forth between the two colors to kind of help smooth out the blend. Then I placed the Stratus Cloud Stencil over the top, holding it down with some washi tape, and using that blending tool and white pigment ink, I went over the top of the stencil to kind of help make my sky a little bit spookier. And because Distress Oxide ink reacts so well with water, I did add splatters of water to that, and then I'm going to use a paper towel to pick up any of the excess water. I'll then flip this piece over. So if this is the back side, I'm going to add the 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape to the back on the very bottom. And then I'm going to fit that into behind my moon. So it's going to attach to the inside of the back of the box. Now, originally I had planned on using a wraparound hillside for the front of my box, but decided to just ink blend right on this. So I got a little creative here. I took a sheet of paper and I tucked that into the box to kind of mask off my scene. And then I'm bringing in that Salty Ocean ink Yes, Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink once again. I ink blended that on there, and I'm also bringing in the seedless preserves. I wasn't sure if this was going to really look good because this is really the color of my sky. But once I kind of popped it up and put it together, I really love the cohesiveness of this. Now, later on, I do actually ink blend at the bottom of the box because you obviously see that when it's laying flat. So I think I do that off screen. For the front of the box, I wanted to add a bow. So I die cut out the bow, which is off of the platform pop-up set. I die cut it out of lime green sparkle cardstock, and then I popped up each piece of the bow just using a foam square, and then I'm adding that just right to the front of the box. Now we are down to the sentiment, and for this, I decided to bring in this little wooden sign. This is from the very special stamp set. I stamped it out again on 80-pound weight cardstock, and I'm ink blending with the stencil using walnut ink. I just varied the amount of pressure that I was using to achieve just kind of a lighter or a darker look. Then I'm using a small block to stamp a sentiment on my sign. I'll then add some tape runner to the bottom of my sign, and I'm going to pop that up right in the front next to my princess. So that is actually going to be my sentiment. Then if I have an additional message I want to write, I can do that on the back of the platform pop-up. So that completes my Halloween scene platform pop-up. I love how this would display on somebody's table or counter, whoever I decide to give this to. And it's just a really great way to incorporate those mice into this fun Halloween scene. I hope you enjoyed today's card project and video tutorial. Thank you all so much for spending time with me today. Here is another video that I think you might enjoy.